Hey everybody, this is Les and Christy, and this is the Easy Farms Podcast, where we are doing things from the ground up. We're here to help guide your homesteading adventure and hopefully make the journey a little easier. Welcome back, and we hope y'all had a great week this week. Right off the bat, we got a question from Jose. He says, I'm wanting to grow herbs on my balcony, but not overdo it. Which are your favorite, easiest herbs to start with, and what do I need to plant them on my balcony?
All righty there. That's a good question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of answers to this, Jose. One would be, you said, what are some of the easiest herbs to grow? And herbs in general are just pretty easy to grow. You can put them on your windowsill, put them in your kitchen. They can have direct light. They can have indirect light. There are all kinds of things you can find in garden centers, on Amazon, in Target, wherever you may shop, that has nice stands, very decorative stands, modern stands, classic stands, all that to put your herbs on. You just want to also make sure your herbs, the pot you're buying your herbs in, will be the right size for your herbs to grow. And you can maintain your herbs small. They can get bigger. And one of the things you can do is, actually, this is kind of funny because I was just talking to my daughter this morning, and she happened to be at Lowe's, and she's kind of gotten back into the gardening bug, and so she called me
After running away for years.
And no, she just was doing other things and wanted to get back to gardening, and she did all the same things. She had a balcony in an apartment, and she realized she couldn't do as much as she wanted to do on the balcony. And now she has a house with a smaller backyard than she would like to have. So she's doing everything in pots right now. Containers. Yeah. And so that's what we were talking about this morning. Was she was sending me pictures of containers. Will this herb grow too big for this container? Will this herb fit nicely? Can I put 2 in this container? Can I put 1? Most herbs will grow appropriately to how you prune them. And some of them, though, the way you prune them, make them really bushy and big. A lot of herbs will grow really big. So as far as going back to the easiest herbs you can grow, one is anything in your mint family. They are almost...
it's referred to as the mint monster sometimes.
Yes.
When it gets out.
You don't want to put it in your raised bed box unless one day you want your whole entire box to be nothing but mint, and you don't want to plant it in a garden bed. That is a perfect plant for a pot.
A 5-gallon plastic bucket in the middle of a 20 by 20 foot concrete patio so it cannot escape is the best scenario.
Right.
Mint can be a disaster.
And we speak from experience on mint. And it really was. It grew great. It grew prolific.
Anything bad, we're speaking from experience on.
Yeah, that's true. It grew. So mint, anything in your mint family, if you like to make mint tea or just harvest mint for anything else, mint water, any of that, that's perfect. You can snip it along the way, have it fresh along the way. You can dry it at the end of the season. You can bring it in and let it grow inside by a window throughout the colder months. All of that is good with any herb I'm about to mention. So herbs are so wonderful to grow. You can grow them inside. Some people grow right there just in their window at their kitchen, and that's all they do. They have it very convenient for them. Basil's really easy to grow. Basil's a good summertime herb. Oregano's a great summertime herb. Rosemary's an excellent one. Lemon balm. And there's so many herbs you may want to also research for medicinal herbalist perspective. So you may want to look at them, see what they have to say for helping for your illnesses and things like that. But if you're just mainly just wanting to start slow, rosemary, basil, oregano, lemon balm, these are really good ones. Mint, anything in the mint family. Also good spring ones to grow would be dill and chives. Let me think. Dill, chives, cilantro, parsley. They don't do as well in the hot heat of the summer. So putting them out in the spring is great. They do really well in the fall. But I have not tried this because we have a farm and we plant outside and we plant in big quantities. And by the time the fall comes along, I don't do a lot of my herbs in pots because I have my raised beds. Mint, once again, we'll do in a pot. And my rosemaries are typically in pots just because they're convenient to me. But you can try bringing in your herbs through the winter months, the ones I just said, through the summer months. I'm sorry. Let me go back. I just said some of these herbs like dill, parsley, cilantro, chives, and all that, they do better in the spring, but you can bring them in the heat of the summer where they don't do as well. So I hope that helps you. I'm not sure for sure if it answered. Les wants to speak into that too.
A couple of things you want to consider before you go buy like this entire bizarre number of herbs would be, what do you like to eat and what herbs go in those foods?
Good.
That would be critical, because you don't want to plant a whole bunch of parsley if you don't like parsley and you don't cook that way. Depending on, do you like Italian food? Jose, do you like Hispanic type foods? Do you like bland food? Don't plant anything. So whatever types of foods that you like, kind of focus on those and start with those. And as far as the actual physical container to put them in, look at the spacing like on a packet of seeds, and that'll give you an idea of the spacing has to do with the size of the plant, but also the size of the root ball. So whatever container you're going to be putting those in, a lot of your, herbs and that sort of thing don't really take up a whole lot of space, but you want to consider that. You don't want to get, a big 20-gallon tub to put some parsley in or the mint, because it will fill that up.
Well, let me say something real quick to what you just said on the packaging. The packaging is more for farmers. It's a little more geared for that. So you can space a lot more crowded than, I don't think I said that correctly. However, you get my point. you can plant things together, closer together than the spacing on the package. So that is not what that is necessarily for, but that is something people believe. And so if it says plant 6 inches apart, I can tell you right now, you can plant that a lot closer.
You can plant a bunch of them in there.
You can do that. And there are certain plants you don't want to do too much of that too. However, and that's on individual planting, but you can, and we talked about companion planting last episode, but for you, Jose, or for anybody that has just a balcony, and that's really all you're working with, once again, what Les said about what you're cooking, that is very important. What you're drinking, if you got herbs that you want to put in like teas or things like that, or you want to make and dried and make a tea with it, then you may want to look around for those type of flowers and herbs that do well with that and grow with that. Most herbs can grow in fairly small pots, and you can trim them back. And throughout the season, you can clip them all down a few inches above, give them a few inches, and then go hang them upside down and dry them out and have them for the winter, and then let them bounce back the rest of the summer in the pot. And then you can get another clipping, and you can clip along the way.
Yeah, and if you're going to have them out on the balcony, you're going to need to pay attention to watering as well, because being that they're in a container,
yes,
it's not like they're in the ground where they can draw moisture from the soil. So, and you're going to need to also what you're going to plant them in as far as the soil. You can, if you want to go organic, you can get that from the hardware store, organic potting soil. Or if you just want to use the fertilizer type potting soils, I'm not going to mention names.
Well, then our suggestion is you go in organic. That's going to always be our suggestion. But yeah, herbs aren't that hard to grow. This is a great question, and hope it works well with you. And once again, like I said, watering anything that's in container planting, we'll definitely need to check the watering, because it does drop faster than those things that are planted straight in the ground.
Yeah,
just a food for thought.
So this week we've experienced some change on the homestead. Christy, you want to speak into the goat situation?
Well, how about before we say anything about goats, let's talk about our sheep. We've had 2 little lambs born.
Yeah.
We've had 2 lambs born, And both of these sheep came pregnant to us. And one of them, they're all Katahdins. All of our sheep are Katahdins. And we were, been really kind of looking into that and looking more into sheep and really want to build a flock over the next couple of years. And, excuse me. But this first sheep, this beautiful white Katahdin, she's lambed a couple of times. She lambed beautifully. She only got with the ram one time before we bought her. So we weren't sure if she was going to have one or two. We were hoping she'd have two, but she only had one. She lambed beautifully. She's a great mama. I was just really surprised at her mothering. I didn't know that. This is the first time we've had that. But then a few weeks, a little bit later, we had another one we bought that came pregnant, and this was her first go around. Pretty white Katahdin, and I went out there and found a beautiful, solid black Katahdin little ram. Solid black. When I say solid black, there is not a speck of white on this baby.
This little ram is jet black. And I mean, it's like you see him run past and it's like, wow, I can't believe how black he is, how dark he is. So his name is Jet.
No, we're not. I told Les, I said, we are not naming any of our lambs and rams.
The little female is Ivy. Like little lambs and
this
Ivy.
is not going to happen.
And we're going to sleep in the house with us.
No.
No, that's not happening.
We don't name them. I hope he's not getting in the habit of that with those. Oh my gosh, but they're so cute. You do want to do that. But yeah, that was both of them. The first time mama, she is a great mama. She did a great job. I'm so excited about that. And the other one that's been a mama, she did a great job. So we're really hoping both of these, we like that in the genetics. We're excited about that. The little ram, we don't know if we'll keep him and breed to the others or just go ahead and sell him when he gets older.
Yeah, we got to decide what we're going to do with that.
Yeah.
We got time.
We do. We got a few months on making decisions on that.
They're still lambs all the way up to a year old.
Yeah, but we don't want to hang on to him and have him breed back. And
unless we want him to.
Unless we need to separate who he can breed to.
Yeah.
But he is gorgeous. But probably sell him. We have a beautiful little white ram that we'll probably raise up to breed. He's not related to any of them. So
the stock is increasing, the herd or the fold is increasing. So yeah, the leads us back around to the goats. The goats were great, and they were a situation where it's like, we need them because we needed to clear some fence line, and they did a great job of
These
that.
are Nigerian dwarf goats.
Yeah.
This is what we had.
Yeah. Okay. So they're the little ones. They're more backyard ornaments.
So cute.
They are. Especially the babies. It's like we had 2 babies born a few weeks back, and it's just like suddenly they were there. I mean, it was that easy. It was like, oh, look, there's baby goats there. And they took to the mom great. They were running all over the pasture down there.
So cute.
Yeah. But the downside, a couple of downsides of goats is they're escape artists. They're little Houdinis. And they're loud. So we took these goats to some friends of ours, dropped them off at their house, and ran away. No, they knew they were coming. But we came home, and the next day we were outside grilling on the deck, just hanging out because it was beautiful. And we were looking at each other like, what's up? It's like, oh my gosh, it's so quiet out here. And Christy happened to go back over to their house, like the day before that, and talking to her friend, and she's like, oh my gosh, they're so loud, noisy. They're so loud. So another downside of goats is they're loud. They're always, wanting food, wanting water, just wanting you down there. And they always sound like they're dying.
Well,
when they're by.
Okay, like, we're not going. They don't.
Y'all need to chill out.
We have one that seems to sound like she's dying. Les goes, she always sounds like she's dying. And but that's not the others. The others have the typical goat sound, but he's right on that one. She sounds like somebody's choking her. It's terrible. But the goats have been great. The reason we had the goats was mainly because we have fences, and goats are excellent at cleaning the fence lines.
Foragers.
They forage. They'll eat, not only eat the grass, but they're going to forage into the woods. They're going to eat up everything. If you have a thicket of woods as high as that goat can stand on its hind legs, in no time you're going to be able to see through your woods at that level down.
Only after they've snuck through the strongest fence you can create, then they get out in the woods and clear the woods.
Stop that. They don't. Ours hadn't hardly ever gotten out. It's only just a few times they've gotten out. Now, I will tell you this. When we used to have, Tolenberg, we used to have Tolenberg goats years ago. They can escape because they are full-size goats. We never saw them, but I think I just believe they just jumped the fence. We couldn't figure out how these goats were getting out. But our Nigerian dwarfs have not been an issue with that. They are not big. You can always go, oh, well, here's exactly where they're getting out, and I just fixed that space. But they are not big like the other ones. They're little. Their little legs are little. They're cute. They're like having a little backyard dog.
The babies can kind of walk through a fence.
The babies are tiny. They are so sweet and tiny. But so what happened is, like Les said, we decided this was a close of a season for us.
Yeah, we transitioned from goats to sheep now. And the sheep are much more docile. They don't try to escape. They graze instead of forage. They forage some, but mostly graze. But that brings us to our discussion question. Finally, we're about 8 hours into this one. Today we're discussing your what and your why when homesteading, as far as that goes. We actually asked that in reverse because your what will never determine your why, because you have to determine your why. Your why will determine your what. And we're going to spend the next 3 hours clearing that statement up. Your what can still change. And it's kind of like, okay, so why are we out here? Okay, well, it's because we're trying to do this. And, okay, so what does it take to achieve that goal? It's kind of what you're looking at. And along the way, even your why will change from time to time. Your why can change based on world situations, situations in the country, situations in your lifestyle, your budget, that sort of stuff. So what you need to determine first is, why are you homesteading?
Yeah, that's it. Well, and that is, you can even narrow that down. That's a pretty broad statement. Our question, why are you homesteading? You can narrow that down. One is, when we started homesteading, back then it wasn't called homesteading.
Yeah, we didn't know we were homesteading.
We did not know that. we just wanted to get out to the country, and our why was, we did not like the suburban neighborhood area. We just we realized this was not for us. We didn't even think it was for our kids. We homeschooled our kids. None of the kids in the neighborhood were homeschooled. We saw the differences in that. Nothing wrong with that. It was just a little harder to connect. We had a lot of friends that lived through the homeschool community in the country. And we just started loving that feeling of being not so hemmed in, cramped in, or any of that. And our kids' friends lived a lot in the country. They were with like-minded friends, and they were out in the country. And every time we would come visit them or spend some time with them, we just loved the space, the getting out. And we started just having an itch for that. And we moved out of the city mainly. It was mainly for our kids. That's what we wanted. We wanted them to have freedom to run around, and however they wanted to run around as little kids, outside, playing with sticks, running around with sticks, climbing trees, throwing rocks. We didn't throw them at your siblings or anything, or in the direction where they could do anything wrong. But, we wanted them to, I didn't care if they went out and got dirty. I didn't care if they went out and played in the dirt. So those were our whys for the country. And that suited us, for us. Some people move out, have a totally different reason. They have they want to jump out there and they want the whole homestead, everything the homesteading can give them, and they try to jump into it.
Make everything from scratch.
Well, but I meant in this case, what I'm saying, some people want to jump out in the homesteading and get country life and all the animals and everything, and they go into it so fast they don't understand their whys. They see what they like and they want all of it, but then once they get into it, sometimes they think, wow, I've bitten off more than I can chew.
Mm-hmm. We found a piece of property and it just made sense to have some chickens. We weren't concerned about, the health of the eggs. Oh, we need healthy eggs. We just had chickens. Hey, let's get chickens.
Just what you do.
And then friends of ours had some goats and he was wanting to sell a few of those. So we bought a few of those. And so then we had chickens and goats, and we weren't going out of the city to homestead, because like Christy was saying, it's like we didn't know it was called homesteading back then. But when we moved to the property we're on now, it was a little more intentional.
Yeah, it was. Back when we first started homesteading, moved out to the country, and we got the goats, we just wanted goats. It was just fun. We didn't have a clue why we wanted goats, so we didn't know our why. However,
I never had to put a lawnmower on the backyard.
That's the thing. After a couple of months, we fenced them in which we would have called our backyard, because we just kind of fenced an area behind our house for all of our chickens and goats, and it was a pretty big little area. But all of a sudden, one day we started realizing in the summer, at the end of the summer, we didn't need a weed eater. Mm. We didn't need a lawnmower. So let's fast forward now to where we are 20 years later, and we got goats, and we knew our why. Mm-hmm. Our why was, we have a lot of fence with a lot of growth, and we want that growth
Didn't want to go out there with a chainsaw.
Yeah, we didn't want to have to deal with it all. So the goats, putting those out there, cleaned up our fence line, and it was great. Our why, we still need the goats on the fence line. But one of our whys is, it's another thing for us to do. So that why is changing, because we don't want to focus on goats. We want to focus on sheep and chickens.
Yeah, Christy started researching sheep and got really involved in the research side of that, and going online, watching videos, and finding out information on sheep. One of the whys that we're out here doing live animals like that is, it's food on the hoof. Mm-hmm. In other words, the chickens, we raise broilers, we raise laying hens, which are producing eggs. We have had goats. We got sheep. And a lot of people come to the country and they're like, okay, yeah, we got acreage. We're going to do cows. Well, a cow eats a lot of grass. And if you got limited pasture space, you can't have a whole lot of cows. Plus, I don't have any mechanism out here to process a cow. A small one processed would be 800 pounds, and it's just, I don't have any way to hoist that up. I don't want any way to hoist that up. It's like, I don't want a great big truck either. I like my Toyota. But a goat or sheep, you can process like a deer. You can hang a deer from a tree and process it. They're a whole lot easier. And in a grid down situation, for instance, 800 pounds of cow is going to go bad before you can eat it if you don't have electricity for refrigeration. It's a huge process trying to keep that preserved. Whereas a goat or a sheep or broiler hen, broilers, you can process those and, keep that safe to eat across a week for the whole family. Just get a big stew pot going and keep throwing stuff in. So it made more sense for what I was ready, willing, and able to process. It made goats and sheep or smaller animals. So in that scenario, which is kind of our mindset out here as far as homesteading, and if something bad were to happen nationally or in the world, or even just, if I got hurt and couldn't work, we'd still have food. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. And so know your whys of one of the RYs of we wanted to be able to walk straight out to the farm, walk straight out the backyard, and be able to have food, be able to sorry, that's about, I don't even know, I'm fumbling here, but to be able to go out and get food. So we've done eggs for 25 years, and you heard our story in the beginning of doing eggs, and that was just a mess. But, we learned what we wanted, and we continued it. We've learned, we've learned what not to do with the chickens. So now over the, 15 years or 10 years, about 10 years, we've had a eggmobile, a chicken tractor, so we don't have to clean out chicken coops anymore. We move that around the yard, and that helps fertilize the yard and green up the pastures and really takes care of the soil. And we do that, and the chicken and the goats and the sheep move, but now no more goats, but the sheep move and the chickens come behind it. And we're trying to do that for parasite control also, but also we know what's in that egg. We know those chickens are free range. They go out, they eat what God created them to eat. Plus we feed them a supplement. We feed them what are the eggshells back, what we give back to them. Our why in all of that is to be able to go out and eat those eggs, knowing what's in it. It's readily available in a hard time situation, a financial situation. But I will say this, it is cheaper to buy eggs at a grocery store, even now, if you need to understand not only what you're going to get, but what you're going to do to get it set up. So if you want chickens, you need to research what it takes and the investment to set it up. But it is wonderful. In the end, over time, it pays itself back. And you just can't beat the fact that those eggs taste 10 times better than any of those you're going to get at a grocery store. So if you want to invest in your chicken house and your coop and everything that it takes, go for it and know your why of what you're doing, because it does take cleaning out a chicken coop, unless you do what we're doing, but it does take all the feeding.
Small chicken tractor.
And you can do a small chicken tractor. You can do any of that. The whys on the sheep. We want to focus on sheep. We've liked the idea of sheep for a couple of years, and we decided to just go ahead and jump into it. And we did that. We have 2 rams now. Sorry, one's going in the freezer. One of them will be used for breeding, and then we have probably about 7 ewes right now. So we won't be doing any breeding until late fall. So we won't have any more until later. But you know what?
Spring babies.
We'll have closer to summer babies, because I actually want to get out of the spring. Some people have lambing winter and spring, and we don't want a winter lamb. But that's one of the things we need to know what we're doing and why we're doing it. We don't want to winter lamb. We don't want to have to deal with cold weather. We don't have to deal with lambing in a barn or any of that. We want to lamb on pasture. We want to be able to rotational graze our sheep and lambs. And we want to be in good season. We won't lamb twice a year. That's not our interest. Our interest is one time a year when the weather is warm and the grass is growing, and do that. But that's what we needed to know what we need to have. One of the reasons we are not planning on getting any more or breeding until late fall is because we need to know what we need. And we need more fencing to rotate these everywhere. The way we need to rotate them, we have to add more fencing. So that's what we need. But we know our why. We want lamb. I've developed a taste for lamb all of a sudden. And it's great. Our kids have developed a taste for lamb. My husband's developed a taste for lamb. And it wasn't like it was hard to develop. No. It was just something we didn't eat. And all of a sudden we did. And we got a son who loves Mediterranean food. And, every time we go to a Mediterranean restaurant, he orders lamb. And so one day I thought, okay, I'll order lamb. I thought, wow, this is really good. So, and then I tasted lamb chops one time, and I thought, this is delicious. This is really good. Why aren't we doing lamb? Now fast forward that, we're doing lamb, and we will sell whole lambs, and we will provide for our family. But that's our why. What we're doing? We're doing lambs, and what do we need for those lambs? And that mainly is fencing, to rotational fencing. We have to do a perimeter fencing to and another pasture, and then we have the electric fencing as part of the rotation. We know why we want our eggs. Why do we want our broilers? Why do we do that?
Amazing.
They are
so much better than the store-bought. And of course, you need to look into the genetics of the company you're buying from, but oh my gosh, they get big fast.
Oh, listen, let me say that. You said look into the genetics. I'm not going to speak into any particular companies. You can DM me if you want specific where we order from. However, we ordered from one company, and every one of those we did the Joel Salatin style. We really like Joel Salatin. I'm sorry. I'm just going to go ahead and say that name out here because he is really great. He's had a wealth of information and multiple years of that he has proven his information to be true. Decades, yes, of proven his information to be true and experience, written multiple books. So this is, I would get into some of his books on, well, I won't go there. We'll do that another time, but just look up Joel Salatin and his methods of farming, his farming methods. But we do his style of rotationally grazing our meat birds. And those birds grew so fast in 8 weeks, and we do feed them an organic, non-GMO food. So that's another why we want that is we want to make sure they're organic. We want to make sure they're organically non-GMO raised and on grass. And Les will go out there and move the box daily for them, the chicken box that they're in, and not so much of a coop, but you'll understand it if you start looking it up. And pulling it forward, so fresh grass every day. And they grew so stinking big. Every one of them weighed out anywhere to 6 to 8.5 pounds. Every one of them. We only had a handful that was 6. Most of them were 7 and 8 to 8.5 pounds. Meat birds. We
were so tired after processing. We processed them ourselves here at the house
with our son.
Thank goodness, because all 3 of us, time we got through doing that, we were all worn out just from picking chickens up.
It was really a lot. But
crazy.
So that's what you got to know on your what. So on your what is what you need to do all that. Do you want to invest in everything that makes it a little easier? If not, you don't have to. You can just invest on a few things to make your meat birds where it doesn't have to be as costly. But to go back to the company, the next year, I decided to try another company to order my meat birds. And every one of those weighed out between 4.5 and like 7 pounds.
They were much smaller.
Most of them were around 5 to 5.5, maybe 6 pounds. I only had a couple, 7.5. That was it. And
noticeably smaller.
Well, noticeably. And so I talked with another friend of mine who orders meat birds for years from both companies. And she said, I've noticed genetically one company is smaller than the others in their genetics. So that was very interesting to me. However, the birds tasted wonderful. It did not affect the taste of the birds at all. But they were just very good. We love to be able to go open our freezer and pull out a whole bird and rotate, do it in a rotisserie or in a, whatever it may be. And it tastes amazing. And I know what went into that bird. I know I'm not going to the store and buying anything shot up with hormones, anything shot antibiotics. I don't even know what anything is in there. And, I don't have, and that's our whys of most of why we do what we do, gardening and everything.
You know how it was processed as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I know where it was processed. I know what country it was processed in. And I know exactly where. Right in our backyard.
Right outside the house.
That's where. So, and it goes the same with gardening. It's like me talking to my daughter this morning. She's thinking, and us also answering Jose's question, she knows what she cooks. And she knows what herbs she was wanting. And she was asking me, what size pot should I put them in? Can I put 2 of this in one pot? Can I do this? She was calling me about tomatoes. And I was like, well, wait a minute. What kind are you looking at? And I was telling her, oh, those are indeterminate tomatoes. And I was able to tell her what that meant. And indeterminate is they keep growing, and they'll grow, and
Until it freezes in the wintertime.
And they'll just keep growing and producing tomatoes, which means you need a trellis or a lattice or something to trellis those tomatoes on, as opposed to a determinate tomato has a determinate size it's going to grow to. It'll still produce tomatoes into fall, but it has a determinate size.
Mm-hmm.
And an indeterminate will continue on and grow as long as it's got the weather to grow in. It won't stop. And so I was able to tell her that, and she was able to therefore go, oh, okay, now I know if I need to get these or get a different kind. And it's the same way with Jose's question. What are you cooking if these herbs are going to be beneficial to you? Are you going to need these herbs? Some of them are just fun to grow. You know what? For crying out loud, if you're sitting there at the hardware store and you're grabbing a thing of herbs, 1 pack, and it's $4 or $5, whatever, and you want to spend it in a pot to put it in just for the fun of growing it, go for it. Sometimes we have to learn our whys along the way. And sometimes we discover, wow, I like that herb. I didn't realize I liked that. Or, wow, I've all of a sudden looked up recipes that call for that herb. It tastes great. Just like all of a sudden I discovered lamb. It tastes great. Next thing you know, we have sheep.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Funny how that happens.
Funny. Mm-hmm. Anything else on the whys? It's the same way with gardening.
Well,
know why. Know what you want to grow, but know why you want to grow it.
Sit down, figure out your why, make a plan. Know that your plan is probably going to change over the years based on circumstances. And start small, increase, find something you like. If you're homesteading, it's always nice to have something sellable. Start small. And because you may find out, you know what, I don't think having 400 chickens is a good idea for us. You may think, hey, you know what, maybe planting acres and acres of sunflowers to sell for the seeds or sunflowers to sell for the flowers. Maybe that's what you like. Maybe that works better for you. Start small, find out what you like, what works for you, what has the potential for making income if you want to go that route. Start with a plan, start with a why, expect your why to change, anticipate change.
Yep.
Because change is going to happen whether you want it to or not. It's not optional.
And like Les said, in 25 years, our whys have changed. Mm-hmm. It has definitely changed. And just recently, our goats leaving the property, is definitely changed in a why. Why we had them changed.
Yeah.
I mean, the why is still there, but to what we needed to have them is not still there anymore. We wanted to streamline. So Les is right. Be prepared. Try some things out. Try some things out. And, yeah.
All right. So that's going to wrap it up for today. I want to leave you with today's Bible verse. It's Psalms 1:1-3. Happy is the one who has not walked in the advice of the wicked, or stood in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the Torah of Adonai, and on his Torah he meditates day and night. He will be like a planted tree over streams of water, producing its fruit during its season. Its leaf will never droop, but in all he does, he will succeed. So y'all be blessed and have a good week.